The moment Sophie allegedly walked out of Sandringham without saying goodbye to a single senior royal, palace staff reportedly realized something had gone catastrophically wrong behind those heavily guarded gates. Because, according to whispers now exploding through royal circles, Meghan Markle's secret plan for a dramatic UK return had just been exposed, and Sophie was absolutely furious about who inside the palace already knew. The timing was terrifyingly suspicious. Sandringham had been unusually tense for nearly 48 hours. Staff movements were restricted. Security teams were reportedly reassigned late at night. Certain corridors inside the estate were suddenly closed without explanation. And then came the detail that changed everything. A black vehicle allegedly arrived through the East Service entrance shortly after midnight, carrying private legal advisors connected to discussions nobody outside the inner circle was supposed to know existed. But somehow, Sophie found out. For years, Sophie had remained one of the quietest and most disciplined figures inside the monarchy. While chaos exploded around Harry and Meghan from California to London, Sophie rarely reacted publicly. She stayed calm, controlled, loyal to the institution, which is exactly why insiders were reportedly stunned when witnesses claimed she emerged from a closed-door meeting, visibly shaken, clutching documents against her chest before walking directly past waiting aides without acknowledging anyone. And according to one palace insider, the atmosphere inside Sandringham changed the second Meghan's alleged return strategy was mentioned aloud. Because this was not supposedly about a casual visit. No. The whispers now circulating through royal media circles claim Meghan had been exploring the possibility of a soft re-entry into Britain through a carefully staged public appearance tied to a charity initiative connected to younger royals. Not a full royal return. Something much smarter, much more dangerous. A strategic emotional reintroduction designed to rebuild public sympathy while bypassing senior palace resistance completely. And Sophie allegedly hated every second of it. Sources now claim Sophie viewed the plan as a direct manipulation of royal vulnerability during one of the monarchy's most fragile periods in years. Catherine's reduced public schedule, Charles's ongoing health concerns, William's increased pressure behind the scenes. Insiders say Sophie believed the Sussex camp saw an opening. But then came the moment that reportedly pushed her over the edge. During the private Sandringham discussions, one advisor allegedly suggested that Meghan's return could help modernize public perception if handled correctly. That sentence reportedly froze the room. Because to Sophie, according to insiders, it sounded horrifyingly familiar, almost identical to arguments made years earlier before the entire Sussex crisis exploded beyond repair. And that is when everything allegedly detonated. Witnesses claim Sophie stood up abruptly, interrupted the conversation mid-sentence, and asked one chilling question that nobody in the room was prepared for. Have we learned absolutely nothing? Silence. Complete silence. One staff member allegedly described the room afterward as feeling electrically hostile. Nobody moved. Nobody even touched their teacups. Because everyone inside Sandringham reportedly understood what Sophie was really saying. This was not just about Meghan returning to Britain. It was about reopening wounds the monarchy had spent years desperately trying to contain. But the real shock came later that evening. According to emerging rumors, Sophie did not simply leave the meeting emotionally frustrated. She allegedly packed her belongings early and departed Sandringham before breakfast the next morning, something insiders are calling deeply unusual given the importance of the gathering. And the message her departure allegedly sent through palace corridors was devastating. She no longer trusted the direction of internal discussions. That single possibility has triggered absolute panic among royal watchers, because Sophie has long been viewed as one of the monarchy's most dependable, stabilizing figures. Quiet, strategic, unemotional in public. So if Sophie was truly disturbed enough to leave Sandringham abruptly, people are asking one terrifying question. What exactly did she hear? And that question becomes even darker when you look at the timing surrounding Harry himself. Because according to explosive whispers now circulating through London media circles, Harry allegedly had no idea how aggressively Meghan's potential UK strategy was being discussed behind the scenes. Some insiders now claim tensions between Harry and Meghan have quietly worsened over public image decisions, especially after multiple commercial setbacks in America throughout early 2026. Allegedly, Meghan wanted visibility. Harry wanted distance. Meghan wanted momentum. Harry wanted peace. And somewhere inside that conflict, Sandringham became the battlefield. One particularly explosive rumor claims Sophie privately warned senior royals that allowing Meghan any symbolic return platform, even temporarily, would create a second crisis far worse than the first. Not because of headlines, not because of public backlash, but because the monarchy itself was still emotionally fractured underneath the polished appearances. The wounds never healed. They were simply hidden better. That is the detail now terrifying palace insiders. Because according to multiple whispers, the family divide is no longer just about Harry and Meghan versus the monarchy. It has evolved into something much more dangerous: disagreement inside the palace itself over how to handle the Sussex future moving forward. Some allegedly want permanent distance. Others reportedly fear the long-term damage of endless hostility. And right in the center of that war sits Sophie, who insiders now describe as emotionally exhausted after years of watching private family pain become global entertainment. But just when palace staff thought the situation could not become more explosive, another terrifying detail allegedly surfaced late Tuesday night. A confidential communication reportedly arrived shortly after Sophie left Sandringham. The message allegedly originated from California, and according to one source, its contents immediately triggered emergency consultations among senior aides. The moment those alleged words from California reached Sandringham, preparations are already underway. Insiders say the atmosphere inside the estate transformed from tense to outright catastrophic, because suddenly Sophie's abrupt departure no longer looked emotional. It looked strategic, almost like she already knew something much bigger was about to unfold behind palace walls. And according to whispers now spreading through royal circles, the real panic was not about Meghan returning to Britain itself. It was about how she allegedly planned to do it. Not through Buckingham Palace, not through Charles, not even through Harry, but through public sympathy. That was reportedly the detail terrifying senior aides behind closed doors. According to explosive whispers circulating among royal insiders, Meghan's alleged return blueprint involved carefully timed public appearances connected to emotional causes, veterans, women's advocacy, mental health campaigns, issues impossible for the monarchy to publicly reject without appearing cold or vindictive. And palace strategists reportedly feared this would place William and Catherine into an impossible trap. If they ignored her, they risked appearing cruel. If they acknowledged her, even slightly, it could symbolically reopen the royal door the institution spent years trying to close. And Sophie allegedly saw the danger immediately. Sources now claim she warned that Meghan's greatest strength had never been titles or protocol. It was narrative control, the ability to position herself emotionally ahead of the palace before the palace even realized the game had started. That is reportedly why Sophie became so alarmed during the Sandringham discussions. She allegedly believed certain advisors were underestimating how quickly public perception could shift if Meghan suddenly reappeared in Britain looking calm, charitable, emotional, and misunderstood. Because according to whispers, Sophie remembered exactly how the last crisis began. Quietly, slowly, then all at once. But then the story allegedly became even more personal. One insider now claims Sophie was particularly disturbed after hearing rumors that Meghan's proposed UK return might include an attempt to privately reconnect with younger members of the family first rather than senior royals. That detail reportedly caused absolute alarm because it suggested a completely different strategy from previous years. Softer, smarter, less confrontational, almost impossible to publicly attack without looking paranoid. And according to palace whispers, that possibility triggered old fears surrounding emotional influence, media optics, and internal loyalty fractures all over again. Because despite everything that has happened publicly, insiders say the monarchy's deepest fear has never actually been interviews or documentaries. It has been instability inside the family structure itself. The possibility that emotional confusion, sympathy, or exhaustion could eventually weaken the united front William has spent years trying to maintain. That is why Sophie allegedly leaving Sandringham became such a massive symbolic moment internally. It reportedly signaled that patience among certain senior royals had finally reached its breaking point. But then came the detail that allegedly pushed even seasoned palace staff into panic mode. Late Wednesday evening, rumors exploded that Harry himself may have attempted to quietly contact someone connected to Sandringham shortly after Sophie's departure. Nobody knows exactly who the call was intended for. Some whispers claim Edward. Others insist it was William's office. One particularly explosive theory suggests the call was actually meant for Sophie herself after Harry allegedly learned she had walked out furious. And according to insiders, the timing could not have been worse, because by then, palace factions were already dividing behind closed doors. Some reportedly believed Meghan's return discussions should be shut down immediately before another media storm consumed the monarchy. Others allegedly feared that permanently freezing Harry and Meghan out would only increase long-term public drama and deepen global sympathy toward the Sussex brand. In other words, the palace was no longer fighting one crisis. It was fighting itself. And at the center of that emotional battlefield stood Sophie, exhausted, furious, and reportedly devastated by what insiders describe as the collapse of trust. One source claimed Sophie privately confided that the monarchy had spent years rebuilding stability after the Sussex exit, only to suddenly find itself staring at the possibility of history repeating itself under a different disguise. Not open warfare this time. Emotional infiltration. That phrase reportedly haunted multiple aides afterward. Emotional infiltration, because according to whispers, Sophie allegedly allegedly believed Meghan had learned from every previous mistake. Fewer attacks, fewer interviews, less anger, more softness, more emotional imagery, more carefully managed visibility, and insiders feared that strategy could become far more effective internationally than the confrontational approach of previous years. But perhaps the darkest rumor now spreading through royal circles involves William himself. According to highly explosive palace whispers, William was allegedly informed weeks earlier that discussions surrounding Meghan's possible UK presence were already happening quietly through intermediaries connected to charitable organizations and media figures. If true, this means Sandringham was not the beginning of the crisis. It was the moment Sophie discovered how far conversations had already progressed, and insiders claim that realization left her horrified because for Sophie, according to multiple sources, the issue was never simply Meghan returning to Britain. It was the possibility that the palace was once again underestimating the emotional consequences of allowing unresolved tensions back into proximity with an already fragile institution. The fear reportedly became even worse after whispers emerged that several international media outlets had already begun preparing redemption arc coverage scenarios involving Meghan and Harry potentially reconnecting with royal life in limited ways. That detail allegedly sent senior aides into complete meltdown because it suggested the narrative machinery was already moving before the palace had even finalized its own internal position. And then came the final bombshell. According to one deeply connected insider, Sophie did not merely leave Sandringham angry. She allegedly left after delivering a private warning directly to senior figures inside the monarchy. A warning so blunt that the room reportedly fell silent for nearly an entire minute afterward. The alleged warning? If this door opens again, you may never close it. Those words are now echoing through royal circles like a threat hanging over the entire institution. Because whether the rumors are true or not, one reality is becoming impossible to ignore. The monarchy may have survived the original Sussex explosion, but insiders fear the second phase could be far more dangerous precisely because it would not look like war at first.